Okay, everyone, welcome back to the Licensing Board. We are now going to agenda item number 4, report number LB 3723. This is the statement of the Licensing Board policy. Members will be aware that following a period of a new board, I'll stick my neck out and say we've got 18 months in which to look at the statement of policy and make any amendments that we see fit. Members will have read the papers, which are quite long in that they have different versions. I think starting we have the current position. We then have another version which has suggestions for amendments to it, and then we have a third version which is the current policy with track changes. Are we all agreed that that's what we have? Yeah? Okay. As part of the process of reviewing the policy, we have consultees. There are many, but I think today we actually have 2 people on the live stream, one being Kirsty Licence from NHS Tayside, and the other is a representative, David Gibson from Police Scotland. Can I maybe open with asking Kirsty Licence, if she's actually with us, if she could present to the board from NHS Tayside. Kirsty?
Yeah, hello. Thank you, convener. Now, I've got an echo. I don't know if you have.
I think that might have been my mic on. Do you want to try again?
Okay. That's better. Thank you very much, convener. And I just, as you said, you have received a report from NHS Tayside from our health intelligence team, just setting out some of the information and data that we're aware of in relation to alcohol sales, alcohol consumption, and various aspects of alcohol-related harm across Angus and where it's appropriate more widely across Tayside and Scotland. So I just want to restrict my comments just to make three points, I think. And that's firstly that there is the pandemic obviously had, substantial impacts on people's consumption of alcohol and the way they consumed. And we're aware that obviously the majority of consumption moved to off sales and at home drinking for very apparent reasons. And it's quite likely that people consumed rather more in that setting than they did pre-pandemic. And we aren't yet seeing that return to those levels. And we know that that kind of drinking is associated with greater risks. It's less controlled, it's less regulated. It puts alcohol into homes where it's accessible, perhaps to younger people who shouldn't necessarily have that access. So I think that's the first thing I'd like to say. And we're aware from information in the Scottish Health Survey that, if you look across Scotland, men, their average consumption is above low risk limits. And that's the average. So that suggests that there's a lot of people, more than half the population is drinking, the male population is drinking above the low risk limit. So I think I would suggest to you that we do still have an ongoing issue with, levels of alcohol consumption that are above what is considered low risk and safe. And the second point I'd like to make is that hopefully from the information you've got, you'll see that we are seeing an increase in certain aspects of the harm that's associated with alcohol. So across Scotland, and Tayside is no exception, we saw an increase in alcohol-specific deaths. And this is a group of deaths that the National Records of Scotland consider to be directly related to consumption of alcohol and entirely due to consumption of alcohol. So they are alcoholic cirrhosis of the liver, alcohol withdrawal, various other conditions that are really the sort of directly caused by alcohol, as opposed to alcohol alongside a lot of other things. So we know that a lot of cancers also have a contribution from alcohol, but it's one amongst many. But these are alcohol-specific deaths, and these are on the rise. And also you'll see that we're seeing a reflection of increased referrals to our alcohol support services, both in the NHS, in the statutory sector, and in the voluntary sector from Tayside Council on Alcohol, suggesting that more people are seeing that they might have difficulties with controlling their alcohol consumption, seeing harms related to that, and rightly seeking support and help for it. And that's a good thing in many ways. But I think the trend in that going up suggests that there's more people drinking at those higher levels. And just the final point I'd like to make is that you may also see in the report that the level of licenses in Angus is not necessarily above averages, above means for Scotland. What I would say is that in this context, the mean is not a measure of good. It's not a measure of an ideal position. It's what we have. And we know that in Scotland we also have a higher level of alcohol-related harm than many comparative countries across the UK and more widely. And we also know that the evidence tells us that alcohol licensing, the provision and availability of alcohol, and the density of licensed premises is directly related to community level areas of alcohol related harm, whether that be health or social impacts, or indeed impacts that police colleagues might speak about. So availability of alcohol, and in this context, availability of licenses, alongside pricing and alongside marketing, are the three pillars that we need to tackle in terms of policy if we're going to make a downward pressure on the levels of alcohol-related harm we see. They're not one or the other in terms of policy. So people will say, oh, well, we've got minimum unit pricing now, that'll do the trick. And we've had recent reports about some of the positive benefits of minimum unit pricing, but we have to be aware these are three distinct policies. They have different impacts, sometimes on different subsets of the population and in different ways, and in access to alcohol in different settings. So I would urge you to consider your role in managing that availability and access as a key policy measure, and to look at that in terms of what's in the report in relation to both levels of consumption and harm. And I'll stop there, but obviously happy to answer any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Kirsty. Can I ask the board members, do they have any questions they would like to direct towards Kirsty or the report? I'm not seeing any hands or anyone has any questions for you, Kirsty. But thank you very much. Thank you very much for addressing the board and for the report from the NHS. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we now move to David Gibson from Police Scotland and ask whether David would like to talk to the details from Police Scotland?
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon to all of you for having my attendance today. I'll keep this brief, but in essence, from the statistical information that's been provided, we can see that, yes, certainly during the pandemic, there was an increase in alcohol-related incidents in Angus. However, looking at pre- and post-pandemic figures, we can see that there is a decrease across Angus. There is one particular aspect. I noticed that most of the towns have seen a reduction, albeit Carnoustie has shown an increase, and that's something I'm quite keen to work alongside the locality inspector for that area and just establish what the rationale for that is and to offer support. But in terms of the the evidence presented, we do see that there has been a decrease, which I'm pleased to report on at this time. And I would just be happy to end it with, I'm more than happy to work in support of local licensing within Angus, and more than happy to work locally with the inspectors and have the licensing team provide support and guidance where required. And that's it from myself.
Thank you very much for that, David. I'll ask the board whether they have any questions for you. Do we have any questions? No questions, David. Thank you very much for that, and for the report. I think today, I hope today, and Jennifer will keep me right if it's not, that we have to look at three things. We have to look at localities. We have a breakdown of localities from the existing policy. We need to look at our over-provision statement and, of course, our draft statement of licensing policy. I don't think we actually, well, I know we don't finalise the licensing policy today. This is, if you like, a starter. And then it goes out, Jennifer, am I correct? It goes out to consultation, a much wider consultation, which includes people like community councils, obviously all elected members, and many others. You'll see it in the report who it goes to. So Jennifer, am I correct in those that we are actually looking at localities?
Yes, localities is the first objective, although that has been previously discussed. The statutory guidance indicates that the decision making in respect of all three of these items needs to be evidence-based, robust, and while it's for yourselves to weigh and consider the information and indeed determine if there's additional information that's required. That's your role, but it needs to be, you need to be able to justify, if you like, the decisions that you make in this respect. So yes, the localities are the first area. I wondered if I could take this opportunity, please, Convener, just before moving on, that there was also information provided by Angus Council in respect of premises, the number of off-sale premises, the number of on-sale premises. However, I have only very recently discovered that that does not include additional statistics. It only includes the statistics in relation to the actual 7 boroughs, which were previously determined to be the localities. And I have some bold additional information which can be distributed so that you have that additional information. Although it's for the board obviously to determine in respect of any of these objectives what additional further information is required. I would certainly suggest that it is required in respect of the information I described there from Angus Council, so apologies for that. I think Fiona has that. Are you able to distribute that?
Board happy to,
if that's
for me
correct.
to distribute
Well, does that information
Yes.
come and affect localities, yeah?
It may not, given that there was the information there from Health Scotland and National Health and Police Scotland. I just felt it might be that this might be an appropriate moment to highlight that additional information.
Are we happy that that's distributed? Councillor Melville.
So this was just a point of interest. When was the last time that the localities changed from where they currently are?
I'm not aware of the localities ever having been any different. Yes, but members will be better placed to advise in that respect.
I think they're currently the 7 towns, are they? Yeah. Yeah, if you can send it, yeah.
just for clarity, Convener, I've sent it also to Police Scotland and Dr. Kirsty Licence.
Okay, thank you. So if this new information could affect a decision on localities, then obviously we will need to study the new information before we can make any
Thank you, Convener. Yes, if I could just explain it, that the information basically just highlights the number of the change from the information from the previous report in terms of number of premises, and it includes those premises which are numbers of premises which are out with the boroughs.
So the figure, Jennifer, is the elsewhere figure, yeah? Of the ones that were...
Yes, the elsewhere figure is the figure, so far as I'm able to determine, in respect of premises out with the 7 boroughs, which were the previous localities. Or the current localities.
It's quite a marked change, isn't there, when you look at some... Yeah. I think this data certainly would be useful in the over-provision decision, yeah? We all had a chance to... Councillor Melville. Councillor Melville?
I mean, my view is, looking at these figures, I don't have them in front of me because my email's not working, but I'm looking at Linda's computer. I'm not sure that there's any reason to amend or change the localities as they are just now. If there had been a marked increase in properties of either off or on sale elsewhere, so therefore not included, then that might have prompted me to suggest that we need to review the boundaries. But looking at the trends between 2018 and now, I don't really see that there's any justification for changing them.
I think that's a sensible suggestion. I think the only issue, I suppose, and Jennifer again will keep us right, is that when we make a decision on the localities, we have to have a reasoning behind it. And I'm not sure of the reasoning behind it. It's enough to say, well, we've had these localities for so many years and there are no real issues in it. That's correct, and you could have one town, I suppose, that had 15 pubs, and then the next place next to it had 1, but it would all be lumped in to one area, which isn't really. Yeah, because there's over provision, which would mean if you actually want a drink, or it could be none in one area, but 30 in one, and you would have to move. If you want a drink, you've got to move into that area to get it. Is that making sense, Jennifer?
I'm not hearing very well without the microphones.
Right.
I apologise.
We have to do this because of the time. We're approaching the 3-hour limit, and I would ask members to suspend standing orders to allow the meeting to conclude. Is that agreed?
We've got a meeting at Angus House at 2.
And it is a minute to 1.
Chair, I don't think we need to start suspending.
Okay, anyone else?
It's just when
You don't agree?
we would have to.
I'm hearing from Fiona, she thinks we'll only take about 10 minutes.
Because we'll have to make a decision on this to allow legal to continue then.
I will say I've heard that before, but we will give it a go. Yeah.
I think we're all realised how much there is.
Convener, would it be helpful for Jennifer if we restated the reasons for keeping the localities the same? Beth, do you want to?
Just the fact that it's logical. It's logical because it's based on the towns, and that's the only way in a spread out rural county like Angus that is effective, in my opinion.
You want to continue for?
Yes, with the existing locations. Yes? Yeah.
Well, can you just...
Yeah, Councillor Darnell.
Maybe you want to look at it later, is the child policy. I think that needs amended. And the child policy through occasionals, I think really needs to be looked at. So I don't know whether you want to discuss that today or discuss it later.
I think that's part of the issue, is we don't actually know what we want to discuss until we go through it. And once we go through it, it might end up, growing arms and legs. But because there is a lot of comments from individuals, and once we actually look at them, there might be a bit of debate on one way or the other. Councillor?
Yeah, just that it is also important to note that this is a draft document that will go out for consultation. So, any issues that are not raised today in this meeting, I have no doubt will either be raised during the consultation or when the amended document is brought back to us, and then we can address those at that point if need be as well.
Can I just check one thing, Jennifer? We have, I think, 3 versions on here of the policy. We have the existing policy, we have a policy with comments from Janet Hood, and then we have a track changes one. Can I ask, does the track changes one include any of the suggestions from the people who've commented so far?
Yes, the track changes version incorporates various suggestions. So the suggestions, some of the suggestions, because obviously it's not possible where there's a slight conflict, for example, in suggestions. But the track change version incorporates some suggestions that were received via the licensing forum, via comments that were received in response to the initial consultation, and also in response to areas that were identified by members as for particular consideration in respect of the review of the Statement of Policy. So the track changes Statement of Policy is the intention in preparing that was so that you would have a document that you could refer to and further change with a view to having a draft statement of policy that could be sent out for formal consultation. Apologies that I've just realised that it doesn't actually say draft on it, so that has made this more difficult. I do apologise for that.
Thank you for that clarification. So we've dealt with localities. Agreed? Yep. Number 2 was the over-provision statement. This one certainly I find a bit difficult given the world we live in now with over-provision. Getting back to what Councillor Melville said, is we can now buy drink online and it could be delivered from Perth and Cardross. You know, and we can buy it throughout the day and so on. So the over-provision thing is quite difficult, I suppose, to get your head round because you can get drink from elsewhere. Now, on this issue, we actually have a statement, Jennifer, yeah? An existing one.
The existing statement, or sorry, the statement, the track change statement includes the previous over-provision, I'll call it the previous over-provision statement, but it has been struck through, not having any indication of what the board's thinking might be in terms of over-provision. That's simply where it stands at the moment. And so, depending on what your thinking is, that could either be reinstated or massively changed. So there's nothing really for you to go on other than the struck through version of the existing statement.
Page 80. It's on page 80, I think we have the over-provision statement. I'm thinking that maybe what we should do then, I mean, if we've dealt with the localities and so on, that if we moved to the tracked change version, I think we're getting it, if you like, everything in there. We're getting the suggested changes added to the existing policy. Is that correct?
The over-provision statement is, over-provision assessment rather, is just one small part. Is it paragraph 15 by memory? Sorry, I'll just...
It's frozen.
Are we on the track changes one? It's page 80, section 5 over provision, and then there's the struck through one there as well.
Yes, apologies. It's now paragraph 5.1 as the struck through part. Apologies.
So Jennifer, the strike through is basically because that's old. And what we are actually doing is looking now.
Yes.
And it could be the same.
Yes, yes. I struck it through because I had no notion of what the board's thinking might be in this regard. The board might wholly agree with it or might wholly disagree with it. Obviously, as previously indicated, the objective of the board is having regard to information that's been provided, weighing evidence and so on and so forth. The board required to consider this afresh, but what your decision is entirely up to you.
Councillor Melville.
Yeah, again, just reflecting on the updated figures that you sent round, I think given the sort of general decline of on sales and I mean the trend across these localities appears to either be a stagnation or a decline in off sales as well, just as a general across the board. I wouldn't really suggest that any areas of over provision have been reached, and I would be inclined to keep the paragraph as it is struck through there, obviously unstriking it and just keeping it as is.
I think I would agree with that. I think that's fair and reasonable, and let's face it, it's going to go out to further consultation anyway, but it seems fair and reasonable. We agreed on that? Yeah. Will I start again? No. 4, notes the information is awaited. Well, it's not awaited from NHS side, we have that. 5, consider whether further information is required to enable localities for assessment of over-provision to be confirmed. No. 6, consider whether further information is required to enable the draft over-provision assessment to be readied for formal consultation. No, I think we're happy with what we have, so it can go. 8, identifies any person in addition to those already listed in Appendix 1 who should be formally consulted upon regarding the over-provision assessment and or statement of policy. Now, we did have some recommendations, I think, from Mrs. Hood.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Have they been taken in? Are we happy to take them into account? It was it the Scottish Licensing Association or something like that, Jennifer?
Mrs. Hood's comments were spread throughout the statement of policy.
Yeah.
So, as a generality, they have been taken into account, but not in every respect. In some respects, I felt that they perhaps didn't relate to, for example, there was suggestion that that wasn't the law and so on and so forth. So I have reflected it so far as I felt appropriate, but obviously for board members to further reflect and to change as appropriate. But as indicated, there will be further opportunity to comment in respect of the draft statement once it is actually formally consulted upon.
So item 7. Item 7, consider whether further information is required to enable the draft statement of policy to be readied for formal consultation, and if not, determines the draft statement of policy for consultation. So basically, do we think there is anything else we need before the draft statement can be readied for formal consultation, or are we happy with what we have?
No.
Councillor Melville.
Yeah, sorry. Just the only proviso would be, I mean, I personally see no reason why we shouldn't consult with the people, organisations that Mrs. Hood has put forward. I think in order to get as balanced and nuanced a view on this as possible, then we should also be consulting as widely as possible. So if it's just a simple matter of adding a few names onto the end of the current list, I don't see why that's an issue. So I would be happy to do that if the board was that way inclined.
I think I would agree. I mean, if there's a suggestion of a consultee who is a reasonable consultee, then there's no reason why we would refuse that. Identifies, and number 8, identifies any person in addition to those already listed, that's the one we just talked about, be formally consulted upon regarding the over-provision assessment. Again, I don't think so. I think we've looked at that and we're quite happy with that. And 9, where the draft statement of policy and or over-provision assessment are determined, directs the clerk to formally consult upon it, them, simultaneously, where both are determined as ready for consultation. Yes? Yeah?
So, sorry, just going back to Councillor Durno, she said she may have comments on children, but if the elected members, they'll now all get consulted on this. So, Councillor Durno, you'll get your chance to put forward that. Would it be helpful if I wrote it on an email, sent it to everybody in the board? I think from the licensing team, what I understand is they'll put out now to all elected members the draft policy, so you will get a chance to come back.
I think it's worth to say that Janet Hood actually had some suggestions on children as well, which might be the same, I don't know, but it'd be worth a look.
Yes, I believe Janet Hood's comments were that they were difficult to understand for individuals to fathom, because the way it ended up worded on, I think, on the licences is perhaps a tad confusing. Yes. Can I just? I wondered with respect to the consultation. Well, consultation in this respect involves writing to those on the list as well as parties just added. In the past, I understand we've also advertised it on Have Your Say, which is what happened with the initial consultation. Is that what members would wish, if I could ask?
Yeah, I think that's Councillor Melville.
I think just on the comments from Janet Hood about it being too difficult to understand, I think from memory it was because they were referred to by number on the licence rather than the conditions in full, and that was just a point of clarity for the board.
Okay, with that, we've looked at all the recommendations. We've made decisions on the recommendations. I think we agreed we're now ready to go to the next stage.
Yes.
So can I just clarify then that means that the clerk, once prepared, is able simply to go to consultation. A time frame hasn't been suggested for that. Obviously time is marching on. We don't have all that long. I don't know if there is a particular time frame in mind.
Next Tuesday would be fine.
I don't think the consultation, obviously for parties to respond back.
Does that sound okay? Maybe it can be done over the recess.
Yes.
Yeah?
So if we appoint a time frame that fits in with if the clerk appoints it.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
John, you can stop the live stream.
Okay, well.